It is great to have you back here on our station. This is the Sinatra Heritage, where the curtain rises and a secret tune is ready to play on your heartstrings. It lay in a semi-slum region. It was so typical of the 1920s, 1930s, and the Great Depression. It was also rather difficult. On December 12, 1915, in the middle of Hoboken, New Jersey, a legendary figure came into this world. Francis Albert Sinatra, a name that will forever be remembered in the history of music. A compelling story of hardship, perseverance, and an unforeseen voyage that unsettles the man behind the music lies behind the mesmerizing tunes. Young Frank's dramatic birth at 13.5 pounds was the stuff of legend. His cheeks, neck, and ear bear visible scars from the use of forceps during his birth, a reminder of the difficulties he encountered right from the start. A succession of accidents characterized Frank's early days, including a baptism mix-up that resulted in his distinctive moniker before his miraculous revival by his quick-thinking grandma. In spite of everything, Sinatra's will to overcome his physical flaws was on full display when he was an adult. His determination to hide his scars, which were a distinguishing characteristic, demonstrated his dogged pursuit of success. Even though he had scars from his struggles, he turned them into emblems of strength and set himself up for an incredible trip. Growing up as the lone child of Italian immigrants, Frank had an overwhelming sense of isolation. His folks, Marty and Dolly Smith, had a significant impact on the neighborhood. Marty was a multi-talented guy who operated a neighborhood watering hole and boxed on the side. Dolly, a midwife who dabbled in contentious matters, offered abortions that were not legal. Because of the rigorous nature of their jobs and their commitment in the community, young Frank had to figure out how to deal with the difficulties of childhood on his own quite a bit. In spite of the isolation, Sinatra's parents' prominent roles in community affairs and their involvement in local politics suggested that his resiliency and charisma may have originated from them. Although growing up in an area where big families were common, Frank's peculiarity as an only child was evident. However, there is an interesting story I can tell you. In his time alone, he developed the independence that would prove to be the key to his success. Though you may be familiar with him from his film roles, the hardships he endured as a young man shaped the charismatic actor we see today. I can only imagine how difficult it was for him. However, his backstory is far more intriguing. The emotional complexity of Sinatra's formative years were illuminated by an insightful interview he gave later in life, in which he revealed a desire for siblings. "When I was younger, I wished I had an older brother who could lend me a hand." His confession revealed a hidden yearning for friendship that has been present throughout his remarkable journey, the desire to have a younger sister to protect. In the youthful light of his Hoboken neighborhood, Frank Sinatra embarked on his journey into the heart of music, where the vivacious rhythms of large band jazz enchanted him. Throughout his life, he was surrounded by icons such as Gene Austin, Rudy Vallee, Russ Columbo, and Bob Eberly. Standing tall as an inspiration was Bing Crosby. The beginning of Sinatra's love affair with music began when his uncle Domenico gave him a ukulele for his 15th birthday, igniting this obsession. He went to David E. Rue Jr. for his studies, high school, and subsequently at A. After Demarest, he attended Hoboken High School, a school that didn't last long but was notable for his talent show band arrangements for school dances. But Sinatra's time in school came to a sudden end when he was dismissed for general rowdiness after just 47 days. Meaning he never graduated. In order to appease his mother, Sinatra enrolled in Drake Business School after his expulsion, signaling a more practical shift in his life trajectory. Despite the short duration of his stay, he managed to juggle multiple tasks. Among his jobs was riveter and delivery boy at the Jersey Observer, where his godfather was employed. But all of these things were only bumps in the road on his way to becoming a famous musician. Dolly Sinatra, his mother, was instrumental in this voyage. Even though Sinatra's dad, Marty, was hesitant at first, he considered his son's dreams for a career in music as a passing fad. Dolly eventually realized the potential in her son. She went above and above to offer support. Through her political connections, she was able to obtain singing chances for Sinatra and supply him with the materials he needed, including sheet music and sound equipment. Her hard work paid off handsomely when she helped Sinatra become a member of the Hoboken Four, a key step on his road to fame. Vocal teacher John Quinlan was one of the first to notice Sinatra's range, and Sinatra's will to become a better performer prompted him to enroll in elocution classes. As his reputation grew, he began performing at Hoboken social clubs and on radio stations such as Wadden in Jersey City. As evidence of his modest origins and unfaltering commitment, Sinatra sung in New York for his dinner or cigarettes. Not only does this story detail Sinatra's ascent to stardom, but it also emphasizes the intricate web of relationships within the family, individual drive, and the unwavering encouragement of a mother who believed in her son's aspirations. A lifelong respect for Bing Crosby, the legendary singer of his day, was a driving force in Frank Sinatra's rise to the ranks of music's greatest greats. A portrait of Bing Crosby, whose easygoing, passionate, and warm singing style served as a foundation for Sinatra's early vocal development, hung in Sinatra's bedroom during his formative years. This appreciation was integral to Sinatra's development into a unique and powerful musical personality, rather just a passing fad. Sinatra and his idol had their first encounter in a more recent club in 1935, beginning an intricate relationship that would develop over the years. A little separation later, they would meet in the 1940s, when Sinatra had already achieved superstardom and Crosby's fame had begun to fade. Aside from Crosby, who was successful but did not have the same wild fan devotion as Sinatra, the frenzy around Crosby was unmatched, especially among young Bobby Soxer ladies. Sinatra and Crosby's animosity was fueled in large part by the media, which frequently featured their scathing and insulting back-and-forth interactions. The intriguing part, though, is there was less animosity between them and more of a show for the spectators to enjoy. They went from being rivals to working together, with the two icons eventually collaborating on duets and appearing in films together, such as High Society, out of mutual respect and admiration. Especially when new artists came on the scene, Sinatra's journey was characterized by times of vulnerability. When Eddie Fisher rose to fame in the early 1950s, for instance, Sinatra worried that his career was on the decline. During this time of self-reflection and uncertainty about his musical future, Sinatra made a bold move by switching to swing music, which re-energized his career and cemented his place in music history. Resilience, evolution, and the unwavering pursuit of musical greatness are themes that run throughout Sinatra's story, as he navigated his relationship with Bing Crosby and the obstacles presented by new talents. His life's symphony, from devoted Crosby fan to colossal presence in music history, is a monument to the transforming force of devotion, tenacity, and the capacity to flourish in the dynamic world of popular music. An illustrious film career interwoven with Frank Sinatra's self-assured yet critical appraisal of his acting abilities began with his early entry into Hollywood in the 1940s. Despite his initial skepticism, he famously said, "Pictures stink." Sinatra's rise to stardom from a supporting role in 1941's Las Vegas Nights demonstrated his growing self-assurance and adaptability on screen. With 1945's Anchors Away, Sinatra finally broke through. Contrasting with Gene Kelly, who is known for his musical prowess, this showcases his versatility and ability to enthrall listeners. The picture was a smashing success, and Sinatra's ascent to Hollywood stardom was greatly aided by its multiple nominations and victories for Academy Awards. However, what's intriguing is his collaborations with Gene Kelly, such as the critically acclaimed 1949 films On the Town and Take Me Out to the Ball Game, further solidified his popularity. The turning point in Sinatra's acting career, nevertheless, came in 1953 with From Here to Eternity. His performance as Maggio was a watershed moment in his career, reviving it and solidifying his position as a professional actor. It also earned him an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor. Young at Heart, 1954, and The Man with the Golden Arm, 1955, were critically acclaimed and received BAFTA nominations, respectively, for Sinatra's continuous role diversification. On set, playing the role of a heroin addict. Despite Sinatra's troubled relationship with director Stanley Kramer, the 1950s were a banner year for his acting career. While Frank Sinatra rose to prominence as a master of American popular music and culture in the middle of the 20th century, he was also a figure beset by controversy and animosity. Jimmy Rosselli, sometimes called the other Sinatra, is one interesting element. Rosselli, who was born 10 years after Frank, grew up in the same Italian-American neighborhood in Hoboken, New Jersey, and shared Frank's family history. Even though Sinatra was toweringly famous, Rosselli made a name for himself, particularly among Italian Americans, thanks to a vocal range that some said was even greater than Sinatra's. Dolly Sinatra, Frank Sinatra's mother, invited Rosselli to a benefit concert, which turned the rivalry into a family feud. Do you think it's real? What followed is anybody's guess. The situation was exacerbated when Rosselli insisted on receiving payment for his performance, which some have interpreted as Sinatra's revenge. It's dramatic in tone and shows how the entertainment industry is very competitive and how unexpected events in an artist's life may change their trajectory. The rumors about Sinatra's purported ties to the mafia further cloud his legacy. Sinatra has denied any involvement with Rome, although his FBI file shows that he was friends with infamous mobster Sam Giancana of the Chicago Syndicate. The Jackal One brothers from Detroit. Beyond simple friendships, Sinatra allegedly used his ties to the mafia for financial and professional benefit by playing at their parties. There were whispers that Sinatra could use these connections to get out of bad contracts or settle conflicts, even if it meant threatening physical force. Frank Sinatra's rise to political prominence, particularly his support for John F. Kennedy and his alliance with the Democratic Party, is an enthralling tale of glitz, influence, and, shockingly, estrangement, even though he was never charged with any crime relating to the alleged mafia ties. The FBI conducted extensive surveillance of Sinatra during this time. The enigmatic halls of power were the starting point for Sinatra's relationship with the Kennedys, which developed via his Rat Pack companion and Pat's brother, Peter Lawford. Are you able to visualize the mystery? The specifics of their first meeting remain a closely guarded secret, but rumor has it that Kennedy was captivated by Sinatra's magnetic magnetism and that Sinatra admired Kennedy's political clout and captivating personality. Sinatra, in his characteristic zeal, became a devoted supporter of Kennedy as he announced his run for president. He organized donor dinners, featured in political radio advertising, offered Kennedy the use of his own jet, and endorsed Kennedy, among other things, thanks to his celebrity power. The sinister undertones of Sinatra's high hopes were amplified by its status as the de facto campaign song for John F. Kennedy. But rumors about JFK's father, Joseph, were circulating behind the scenes. They said he was trying to use Sinatra's ties to the mob and unions to get votes. But things took a turn for the worst after the election in this apparently peaceful friendship. The revelations provided by FBI Chief J. Edgar Hoover with Robert Kennedy were a turning point, revealing wiretaps from the White House that established a connection between JFK and Sam Giancana, a mob chief from Chicago. The affair between Sinatra and Pat, JFK's married sister, was exposed by yet another wiretap. Keep your breath until this revelation comes to light. The tapes exposed Sinatra's sly plan to use his connection with Pat to sway her brothers and deflect criticism away from his gang members. After these scandalous discoveries, Robert Kennedy and the Kennedys saw Sinatra as a liability. The political family that Sinatra had so ardently supported ended their once close association as a result of the consequences. Throughout his marriage, Frank Sinatra experienced passion, heartbreak, and a string of pivotal moments with many women. Sinatra wed Nancy Barbado, his boyhood sweetheart, in 1939. They welcomed 3 children, Tina, Frank Sinatra Jr., and Nancy, and enjoyed the joys of parenthood. Unfortunately, their once-perfect marriage began to fall apart in the late 1940s as a result of growing discord between them. Sinatra met actress Ava Gardner in 1951, enticed by the glamour of Hollywood romance. The glitz and glamour of Sinatra's existence was enhanced by their marriage. Their love story, however, had its fair share of unexpected turns, just like any good movie narrative. What transpired subsequently will shock you. Following their divorce, Sinatra wed for a 3rd time in 1966 to Maya Farrow. This union likewise ended in divorce in 1968, despite the initial charm. Barbara Blakely Marx, the ex-wife of comedian Zippo Marx, was Sinatra's 4th and last bride in 1976, proving that his desire for a long-term commitment to love never faded. More than 20 years passed between them until Sinatra passed away, proving that their marriage was resilient. In October 2013, Maya Farrow hinted that Sinatra might be Roman's father in an interview with Vanity Fair, adding an intriguing twist to the already complicated sexual life of Frank Sinatra. Ronan, her sole legitimate biological child with filmmaker Woody Allen, caused quite a stir in the media, who couldn't help but find it funny. He made a light-hearted observation in a tweet, saying that stories of Frank Sinatra's explosive fury and unpredictable behavior have become legendary. But you know what actually sets the mood for tension? As described by GQ, one noteworthy event took place at a Hong Kong performance. Sinatra flew into a rage after a misdiagnosed light cue, destroying his dressing room and wreaking mayhem in his hotel bedroom, damaging precious antiques in the process. Notable behavior also included driving a golf cart carelessly through a shopping mall glass while inebriated. A.J. Additional insights into the singer's tumultuous personality can be found in Sinatra, Behind the Legend, Randy Turiparelli's biography. Things are about to heat up now. Sinatra allegedly lost his cool at an Italian restaurant and threw a plate of pasta against the wall because he thought it was too wet in one episode. The fact that Sinatra had a history of berating venue employees is brought to light in reviews of James Kaplan's biography and performers who are less well known. Furthermore, you are aware of the fact that it heightens the tension. He would sometimes use his ties to the mob as a weapon to threaten or assault those he didn't like. Particularly driven by his own inadequacies and dread of public shame, Sinatra's contempt for stand-up comics was striking. Get ready for this unexpected turn of events. A gang of Sinatra's associates turned violent toward comic Shiki Green when Sinatra took offense to a comment Green made. Threats of physical violence were directed towards comedian Jackie Mason after she made light of Frank Sinatra's marriage to the considerably younger Maya Farrow. The situation becomes considerably more dire from this point on. As he continued to make Frank Sinatra jokes, Mason was physically attacked and shot in the nose and cheekbones while staying in his hotel room. Perhaps not more so than the average guy, he would immerse himself in love. Why? Perhaps it was because he was more nimble and dynamic. On a global scale, had extra. There was a lot at his disposal. That is definitely the case, you know. Despite his reputation as a charming performer and a man who could win over any woman he met, Frank Sinatra struggled with an intense need for emotional connection. Tara Borelli claims that Sinatra struggled to keep solid relationships going and was always looking for something better. The ups and downs of his emotions and his own uncertainties created a striking contrast with his seeming achievements. But here's the interesting part. Glamour aside, Sinatra was merely a man on a quest for authenticity. Frank Sinatra Jr. followed in his illustrious father's footsteps and began performing professionally at an early age. Unfortunately, Sinatra Jr. was kidnapped from his dressing room at Harrah's Club Lodge in Lake Tahoe on December 8, 1963. Two individuals abducted him while pretending to be delivery workers, seeking $240,000 in ransom. Sinatra Sr. worked with the FBI and paid the ransom to get his son back. The narrative gets more complicated now. Despite the kidnappers' eventual capture, the prosecution tried to implicate Sinatra Jr. in the kidnapping throughout the trial, a contention that the FBI had already disproved. The conviction of the kidnappers brought an end to a horrific period in the Sinatra family's history, and justice was served. The death of Frank Sinatra on May 14, 1998, was the final straw. He passed away after a heart attack at Los Angeles' Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. As he battled Alzheimer's disease, bladder cancer, heart and pulmonary problems, and other illnesses in his twilight years, Sinatra was surrounded by his 3 children and wife Barbara Marx. A pack of Camel cigarettes, a bottle of Jack Daniel's whiskey, a Zippo lighter, and $1's worth of dimes were interred with Sinatra, signifying his favorite brands and vices, in a symbolic gesture that reflected his life. Behind all the glitter and splendor, Sinatra was simply a man looking for something genuine, despite his explosive temper and troubled relationships. His daughter's reflections on her father's life reveal a story that goes beyond the legendary performer to show Sinatra as a multifaceted human being who, despite his fame, struggled with love and other issues. Make sure to subscribe for more interesting video updates and share your ideas in the comments.